I remember once I was doing a commercial with Alex Proyas for Nestea.
Right.
And I was lighting this stage. It was like a theatrical set. I was lighting it very dark. And Alex is like, wow, it's really dark. I said, yeah. He goes, how dark is it? And I said, I don't know. I haven't gone this far yet. And I said, are you okay with that? He said, well, yeah. You know, if it's no good, then we have time tomorrow to reshoot it. I said, okay. So, you know, it's like, how are you ever going to know the limits of film if you don't push the film?
Right.
And the next day, Alex saw the film before I did, and I came in the stage. He said, so, you found the edge and you fell off.
Welcome back to another regularly special episode of Through the Lens. And we are genuinely honored today to have with us somebody who I thought was Salvatore Totino. But now I understand, having met you for about 5 minutes, it's Sal. You're Sal.
Well, everybody calls me Sal.
Right.
Yeah, my proper name is Salvatore.
So, Brooklyn,
New York.
Italian family.
Mm-hmm. Parents immigrated from Italy.
Oh, so you're first generation?
First generation American. My first language was Italian, actually.
Your first, okay. Let's start off with this. I'm sitting in a theater, I think it was 2000, maybe 1999, 2000. And this movie that we went to go see because, college, high school, we were football fans. We were movie fans. We were Oliver Stone fans. And we go see this movie hits the screen any given Sunday, one of the most aggressive, action-loaded and at the same time heavily dramatic sports movies ever made. And this is if I'm not mistaken, first time.
It was my first feature film, yes.
First feature film.
Yeah.
How did that happen? How did that come about?
As you know, Oliver was working with Bob Richardson for the longest time.
Yeah.
Bob wasn't available for that film.
Mm-hmm.
So Oliver has a very good relationship with my agent and asked him to recommend some young, new DPs. Mm-hmm. And my agent sent over a bunch of reels, including my own, and Oliver liked my work, and I went in for a couple of interviews while I was interviewing a few other people, and I got lucky.
Well, I mean, it's just...
Got lucky. It was like pulling a draft.
Right.
You say you got lucky, but it was also the first day of principal photography. Oliver looked at me and said, "Welcome to Vietnam," and that's what I meant by pulling the draft. It's like, was this a good thing or not?
Did you think you were still on the set of Heaven and Earth or one of his other?
No. What he meant by that is like, look,
right.
You are either gonna survive,
sink or swim,
or you're gonna die.
Right.
It's gonna be all up to you. Well, when he said that, I walked away. I was like, what the fuck's he talking about? And in the next couple of weeks, I've come to realize what that was about.
And what was it about?
It was about surviving. It was like trying to find a way to be creative while being pulled back on every single angle possible. Yeah. Oliver would do odd things, like he'd call on his way to set and say, hey, I want to shoot this scene, blah, blah, blah. Al walking out the door, and I'm like, well, that's not in the schedule. It's not even in the script, He's like, don't tell me. You set everything up for that. So I'd set up for that, and he'd be like, what is this? So you just told me on the phone. So didn't you read the script? The schedule was supposed to be inside. You just wasted 20 minutes. So it's like, okay, so now this is what it's going to be like. Right. So, you're constantly dodging bullets and figuring it out. Look, Oliver, I have a lot of respect for him. He's a genius.
Right.
The man's very smart.
Clearly.
And, we all have our time.
Right. I saw the movie in the theater. Haven't seen it since again. I never rented it. The scenes that jump out to me from memory, LT sawing a car in half, this crazy, aggressive angle, and just sparks flying all over the place and stuff like that. Night exterior. Scenes in Al Pacino's character's house with Jamie Foxx where he's making him lunch, a jambalaya or something like that. Mm-hmm. And you have Ben-Hur in the background, on the plasma screen in the background. Yeah. And it's like, how do you make a two-hander into something, with the level of a war movie, aggressively done, just like constant.
Well, that's all of his brilliance right there.
But I'll tell you something, Cap Rudy's been doing it for years.
And his time is over.
And yours is too, unless you start taking some risk and start playing this game the way it's played today. It is not about the pictures and trophies on the wall.
I lived this game for 3 decades, kid. I know football. Now, those men on the wall...
They wanted to win.
Okay, there's a rumor. I just want you to know if you can confirm it or not. The scene where, it's Al Pacino's halftime speech, is it, you just get the focus puller to grid the floor and Al's going to go wherever he's going to go, or does he actually keep to whatever the marks are?
Al goes where Al wants to go.
Okay.
He's incredible to work with.
I can only imagine.
I love Al.
Tell us a little bit about that, just about your first time DP and you're seeing Al Pacino work. Is it just like...
I've always respected and looked up and to Al.
So we kind of pinch me, I'm dreaming. I'm
exactly.
Lighting Al Pacino.
And I'll be on set, and my back towards the door, and Al will walk on set and just tap me on the back and say, "Hey, Sally boy, how you doing?" And I'll be like, "Wow, Al just called me Sally boy."
You must have called your mom and told her.
And I would still feel like that today if I worked with him.
Right. So let's go back in time. You are growing up in Brooklyn in a rough neighborhood. What gets you into cinematography? How did that happen?
I'll try to keep it short.
Yeah.
My family, you either went to college or you learned a trade.
And
when I was young, I wasn't doing so well in school, and they encouraged me to go to a trade high school, where I started picking up my grades and I started doing really well in math, and I took college-bound classes, and I wound up going to college for engineering. 2.5 years of that, I was like, oh my God, so boring. I quit. That summer, I was contemplating taking some photography classes. The idea of making a living as an artist in my house
wasn't even.
No.
Was not. Your father was a.
Well, actually, my father's a hairdresser.
He's a hairdresser. Okay. Well, there's some art involved in that for sure.
Okay. Tony Sirico on The Sopranos, Paulie.
Yeah.
That's my dad's work. Yeah.
Really?
And that's just by coincidence. Him, Tony Sirico, going into my dad's shop in the neighborhood with my father. Yeah. That's a whole other story.
So you were involved in movies.
I was going to start taking some photography classes.
20 years old, and you go, I'd like to take some photography classes.
21.
21.
21.
Okay.
But I didn't take them.
Didn't take them?
No. What happened was I met somebody who was in the film business, and I went and saw him at work one day. I was like, wow, I was just enthralled by the whole thing. And he said, look, if you want to get in the business, you have to become a PA and quit your job. And so next day I quit my job, and I went looking for work as a PA, and I wound up going to work for the company where he worked, and I wound up staying there for 1.5 years. And in the meantime, I had bought myself a still camera. I taught myself how to print black and white.
And the math part of your mind now is liking the fact that a stop up and a stop is like it's...
Yeah, it's kind of like that.
Right.
I never took it so mathematically. I think the mathematical aspect of it is a very good foundation that you need to know.
Right.
But you need to be free about it.
Uh-huh.
It's like a recipe. You're cooking. You're cooking a dish. You could follow it down to the last gram, or you could put a little bit of your soul into it.
So you would say you light very much. I love the analogy to cooking.
Yeah.
You're saying you light and shoot very much with. If it doesn't feel right, it doesn't matter what the.
Yeah.
Right.
Rules are there to be broken. And sometimes they're broken and they're wonderful, and sometimes you're like, oh man, why did I do that for?
So flashing forward now, you start getting jobs on music videos and then commercials, and then you get hired on any given Sunday. And you're like, pinch me, I'm dreaming. But you made it through.
Oh yeah, I made it through. I lost 22 pounds, and I did not want to do a feature film after that.
You did? You were like, that's it, I'm not doing it.
I was like,
if
if they're all going to be like this, I'm not interested.
What changes?
2001, I think it is. Raj Michelle and Scott Rudin. Scott Rudin sends Changing Lanes. And Roger's very opposite of Oliver.
British director.
British director, theatrical training, very much about the actors.
Right.
Very collaborative. His cards were on the table. You didn't know. You knew exactly what was happening. You didn't look over your shoulder. You didn't have to worry about any of that. And it was a great experience. It was such a lovely experience.
So let's talk a little bit about cameras, actually, film versus digital. I've heard every attitude across the board, purists to Not, you know, I'm not scared of technology. Not scared of technology. I don't want. What? I mean, if I had to venture a guess, which I don't because you're here, but if I had to venture a guess, I would think your attitude is, you know, these are changing things, and pictures are pictures, and they each have their own qualities that they bring to the table.
That's true, but I want to hold on to film as long as I can.
Oh, you do? Okay, so you're
well, only because it is going to go away.
Right.
And I do love it so much. It's not as, it's more alive, where digital is more clean and antiseptic. I also like the fact that you're wondering what am I going to see tomorrow from yesterday.
It's that mystery.
That mystery.
How much do you play around before? I mean, because it was just moving into another thing. Not one of your two movies looks the same. There is not one of your two movies that looks the same. I've seen all of your movies, or most of them. I think I've seen all of them. Maybe there's one or two that I haven't seen.
Like us, yeah?
I haven't seen that yet.
You
It's just
have to go see People Like Us.
Kurtzman and Orci. So we got to talk about that in a second. But I think I've seen most of your movies, and none of them look the same.
I find something that I really like to do material-wise and put myself into it.
Mm-hmm. So the way I refer to Cinderella Man is I say it's the best movie Roger Deakins never shot.
Yeah.
I mean, period piece, right? And there's this classic argument about period pieces. Well, we know that going back they had less light, therefore they should, they should be brighter, they should be dark, whatever. That movie to me, there wasn't one frame of Cinderella Man, whether it's drifting across Russell Crowe's apartment after the Depression hit. Beginning of the movie, he's on top of the world, and it flashes forward, and we drift across the apartment. It's very dim. There's no light. There's nothing. He's impoverished, or the huge crowd with all these hats and all these long coats, or Giamatti's empty, sparse apartment. None of it. There wasn't one shot in the movie that felt like it wasn't part of this perfectly designed whole, that you'd constructed this full world, and every scene just sort of linked into that world. And so what was your plan going in?
Thank you. Well, the plan was to really try to make the audience feel as though they were there. For example, in Russell's apartment, I went through very painstaking steps not to remove walls. It was a set to work out lensing so that we were in the room. So there was only one time I took a wall out to get behind so I could come across the table. Other than that, I really tried not to. And then my crew was starting to get a little frustrated because there was only one door in and out. So we agreed to open a wall and a closet in the back to get equipment in and out.
Right.
And it forced me to be on certain lenses because of the distances that I needed to be. So, sometimes it might not have been as flattering if I had the distance to go on a longer lens, and I think that really comes out in the film, and also in the boxing. I was
talking
in
about
the ring.
Talk about shooting boxing, because this is something that, I think if I was, I'm not a DP, but if I was, I'd be scared out of my mind, because everyone thinks of Raging Bull. But then, every DP has done boxing at some, how
you look at Raging Bull, and, it was very innovative for the time.
Of course.
But when you go frame by frame, the punches are pretty far off. And, Ron was like, okay, how are we going to do the boxing?
Right.
And we went to a gym out here in the valley way before and just got some video cameras. And, I said, Ron, we'll just get in the ring with the cameras. He said, well, how are you going to get in the ring with the cameras? The actor's going to get hurt, you're going to get hurt. I said, no, it won't. I said, I think we could do this. And we did a little test with some video cameras here in the valley. It kind of worked out, but he's like, but those are small cameras. And I'm like, look, I can do it. When we're in prep, let's do some tests. And that's what we did in prep. I got in the ring with Russell and another boxer. We studied the choreography first, and then move around the choreography with them without the camera. So they could see where I was, I could see where they were going, and it was like doing a dance. Yeah, it's like doing a dance.
Let's talk about lighting the movie. Is it just every scene you just get in, you figure out your? I mean, are you figure out the framing first and light second?
You know, I do a lot of prep in pre-production. You know, scouting locations with the director, and then afterwards going back with my crew and talking about the sets and what I'm thinking and where I want the light to come from. So on the day, I'm pretty much roughed in. Very rarely do I go, no, let's just scrap this all and do it differently.
Right.
You know, because you are telling a story.
Because there are some DPs who do that.
Yeah, there are, but you know, I'll make a commitment, and afterwards, I don't always make the right choice. And afterwards, I'll look at it and go, fuck, you know, I should have done that differently.
Are you ever wanting to play the role of the artist more or less? I mean, like, what? It just doesn't even occur to you. I mean,
No, it doesn't occur to me. I don't think of playing an artist.
Frost Nixon. That movie, again, as I said before, none of your two movies look the same. That movie, it almost felt like everything photographically was building into the footage between them in the interview.
The first time I heard that, that's interesting.
That's just the way, it just felt like it had a look to it that you were capturing, you know, this documenting this thing, almost like a newsreel that's moving along, and then it just barrels into, can this guy do it? Can he actually pull him out of that cell? I mean,
well, you know, in a way, it was also like Cinderella Man,
right.
that movie, because it's about these two opponents training. Ron's like, how are we gonna make these interviews not feel boring?
Right.
It's because it's like a boxing match.
So, in that case, will you accept then, to clear the air once and for all, that you were part of a cover-up and that you did break the law?
Shit. This is so wonderful. Or I'm looking at Frank Langella, and I forget, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm in the room with Nixon. And he really made me feel like I was in the room with Nixon.
I have made statements to this effect before. All that was Haldeman and Ehrlichman's business. I knew nothing. Okay, fine. You made a conclusion there. I stated my view. Now let's move on. Let's get on with the rest of this.
Hold on.
I don't want to
Hold on. If
continue
Haldeman
this
and
con-
Ehrlichman were the ones really responsible, when you subsequently found out about it.
People Like Us, your latest film.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So Alex Kurtzman and Roberto Orci, two of the highest, most regarded writers working in robusiness right now. Were both Alex and Roberto on set the whole time, or were they working like the Coen brothers?
No.
Okay.
Roberto was out. You know, he came by once or twice. It was Alex's movie.
Okay.
Alex directed the film.
And obviously for him, I mean, it's
based on a true story.
right.
And true events. You know, unfortunately, there's a little suggestion in some of the media now that it's just horrible that they just try to put this target on his back, and you know, because it is different than what he's done. He's done an amazing film. Right. It's his first film.
Right.
He's taken a personal story and made it so accessible to everybody. And that it just, you know, gets some of the critics are just, I don't know what they're thinking. You know, it takes a lot of fucking balls to take a personal story and to actually bring it to fruition.
To actualize it.
Yeah. I mean, how many people can say
Very
they
few.
do that?
Yeah,
right?
you know.
Look, he fictionalized the movie,
He has to.
and he had to do it.
Yeah.
But it caused a lot of friction in his family too.
Right.
You know, so that's a very difficult task to overcome, and he did an amazing job.
It sounds like you were very, not only was a partnership to work on that movie, but you're very proud of him as a.
I'm very proud of him.
Fantastic.
Going to any battle.
As far as
Oliver would put it.
it's kind of funny. We're talking about your last movie, your first movie.
Yeah.
Do you get emotional on set?
I have, yeah. You know, on People Like Us, twice, Michelle Pfeiffer made me cry. Not that she made me cry, but I operate a camera, and during one of the performances, she's having a fight with her son, Chris Pine, and through the lens, I just felt it, that I just started to cry. The hair on my neck stood up, and I just started to cry. And it's just incredible when an actress or an actor can take you there.
Her name, say it.
I don't know what you want me to say.
Say it. Say her name, say it.
I am not going to have this conversation with you.
It's Frankie.
Who told you? We moved past this a long time ago. It's over.
And then another time she apologizes to Chris and tells him sort of the truth and what happened. And in that moment too, you know, it's just, she's carrying the whole weight of the world on her, and you feel it. And you're in the room and you almost feel like, I shouldn't be in this room right now.
I made him choose. And he chose us. Marriage, Sam. Well, you're going to find out.
Right.
I love what I do, and I want to keep doing what I do.
Any particular types of stories that you haven't yet told that you'd like to tell? You know, I'd really love to be. What kind of movie would Sal Totino like to be?
You know, I want to do like a Born Identity. I want to
You
do
an
a
action
Bond film. I would like to do like
Espionage.
but a good one. You know.
Any words of advice for, you know, young cinematographers who are watching, who admire your work, because there's many?
You know what? Take chances. Take risks. Figure things out. You know, in the direction that you want to go, and take a chance and see how wonderful it could be or how horrible it could be, and learn from that and be good to other people.